Hello and welcome to this beer clipper video. In this video I'm going to show you the build process I went through for creating my entry for the TCU, Tabletop Crafters United Challenge, with the theme Nature's Return. And I shocked everyone, and most of all myself, by winning this time, I think. Can't remember, it was a few months ago now, but I think I did, and it was a really fun build. So I really hope that you enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It was quite basic, it wasn't as involved as most of these ones have been, but yeah, it turned out really well, and hopefully it'll be inspiring for you. I made use of some 3D printed stuff and some various other techniques. So yeah, I'll stop rambling now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again at the end. So here is the territory from Mini Monster Madness. I think that's the name of the company. What I've done is printed it and then washed it in the washing machine with alcohol, and then put it in some nice hot water. Not so hot you can't put your hand in it, but pretty hot, so that rinses the alcohol off and also makes the supports, as you can see, literally just fall off. Now if they're not falling off like that, which they don't always, what you can do is just get yourself a knife and just run your knife very, very carefully along, and that will separate the supports from the piece without causing any damage, as you can see. And these supports, the reason particularly why I wanted to film this is these supports are just superb. They really are. So this is a keyed piece, so the one thing I'm going to be finding out is how well that's going to work. And I have often not found keyed pieces to work very well, but hopefully this will. It appears to be numbered. I've accidentally actually picked up number 1, as you can see. So yeah, we'll find out. So I'm going to clean the rest of these up. You can just see just how nicely these supports just are coming off without any pain at all. What I'll then do is let these air dry and then cure them under UV light in the cure machine, and then I'll bring you along, show you what it looks like and how it looks when it's glued together, and then we'll give it a bit of a paint and see how it comes out. So yeah, so far very impressed with Monster Mini Madness. I bought another couple of things off them, so the fact that these have printed out so nicely is really good. So yeah, I'll get that all done and show you what it looks like when it's all dried and glued together. I've got this all cured, and now I'm ready to start gluing them together, and I must say I am so impressed. This is probably the best keying I've seen on any model I've ever printed. I normally have lots and lots of trouble with this. When they print out, they just don't fit. But you can see here, this is number 1, and that goes on to number 1, and it's almost seamless, which is just fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and glue all of these limbs on. You can see we've got 1, 2, 5, 6. We do not have a number 9 because it would be confusing with 6, which is quite smart as well, I thought. So yeah, so I'm going to print all these on, glue them on just with super glue, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. But really, they do just slot in. There's number 3, that's going to go there. They slot on very nicely. You do need to glue them, they're not going to stay on without glue. You won't be able to magnetise them, but they're not designed for that. I'm going to glue them. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Very pleased with that though, really pleased. As expected, this is glued together superbly well, and I don't actually even need to do any filling. Very, very, very impressed with how that's gone together. So what I'm going to do now is prime and paint it. I'm going to use contrast paints on this. Paint it quite quickly because I think it will look good with contrast paints, and then I'm going to have a lot of fun doing the base. Now I've been umming and ahhing about that, as I often do, and I haven't yet decided what I'm going to do. So yeah, I'm just going to paint now and then worry about the base once I've finished painting. I've got a couple of options, a couple of good ideas, nothing that's really jumped at me and said this is what you must do yet. But anyway, nice print, assembles really well. Let's get it painted. I've finished painting up this scary tree, and I really like it actually. It might need a little bit more paint on it when I've actually finished, but you can see it's got a couple of bodies that are kind of being held in by these bright green creepers. So the plan is to make use of this circle, which I cut out when I was making my Dol not Dol Weathertop, apologies. I'm tired, it's late, I should be in bed, but I want to do this. So yeah, so when I did the Weathertop for Battle Games of Middle-earth last month, so go and check that out, it's a great video, I had a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw around the base of the, or not draw around, but just mark roughly around the shape of the stump of the bottom of the tree, like this. Hopefully without knocking it too much. So I've got a rough idea of where I need it to be flat, as it were. And then what I'm going to do is get a hot wire cutter and I'm going to hack away at the rest of the circle, and I'm going to bring it down so it's smooth, so not smooth, so it rises up from maybe a couple of mil at the front or around the edge, and it's a little bit more of a kind of hillock rather than being a platform, because I don't want it to be a platform. So I will grab my hotwire cutter and put some music on and do the hacking, and I'll show you what it looks like. Right, so that cut out really nicely. I was really quite pleased with how it looked. I did a little dip here, which will go underneath the extended root, which had the arch in it, so I can have a little bit of fun there. So the next step, and I've been umming and ahhing just for a little bit about this, is I'm going to actually paint this black. Just undercoat it. This isn't going to give it any strength, obviously, because this is merely black house paint. However, it will mean that the white won't show through anymore, and I can then build up from this using grout and sand and whatever other texture I want to. And if I decide I'm going to stick the tree on before I do the texture, which I probably will, it means that I will be able to get that done without worrying about there being any white showing through near the tree. So anyway, slap this paint on, let it dry, do a second coat, let that dry, and then I'll come back to you with the next step when I get to it. So I do think I am going to have to do 2 coats. Okay, so it's time to stick the tree down to this base. I'm going to make use of my favourite glue, my Moment Fix Extreme. So put a dollop on the bottom, don't have to do too much because I will be using other techniques as well to make this more secure, and then get the stringy bit of it and then carefully place it down how I want it to be, like that, and then press. There we are. Cool, so I will let that two go off, and then when it's gone off we'll come along and we'll put the rest of the texture on. Making a good little bit of progress on this now. Alright, so next thing to do for this, now this is glued on nice and securely, is to come in with some of my terrain glue, which is literally just a fancy name for watered down PVA, and we're going to slap this on all over. Not mattering too much if I miss bits. It should go in underneath the tree to seal it in, and we're going to slap a load of unfiltered, unsifted sand on it. I'm not using my sifted sand for this, so it's going to be a nice rough base. So literally put your sand on. You don't have to be fancy with this. Throw it on, shake it off, and there we are, we've got a base. So I'm going to do that on all of it, simple as that. When that's dried, I will then put another coat of the same glue over the top to seal it, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to paint it or not. But yeah, I'll get that done off camera because it's the same thing over and over again, and bring it back for the next step shortly. Alright, that's dried, so now I'm going to come along, like I said, with some more of my watered down PVA and paint that over to seal that all in. Now, I've just read a comment on the previous blog, thank you Stomping Freak, who pointed out that I should have used what I call terrain paint. You'll find a link in the description of all of my videos for how I go about making that. But what happened is, and the reason why I haven't used it on this project, is it went off. I didn't use it for so long that even with a good mix of like washing up liquid in it, it actually went mouldy and smelly and horrible, and I tried to save it and I couldn't. And I'm just doing that much less terrain like this, traditionally terrain, doing a lot of PVA, a lot of work with MDF and what have you, that I just didn't use it as much, and I hate throwing things away. So so I went for the plain, the raw black paint on this. And I was, as I've said in the comment already, but I thought I'd verbalise it as well. I'm happy enough to do that in this case, mainly because I was aware that I was going to be coming along now and putting this coat over, which is going to make this a very hard wearing piece indeed. All this PVA and sand will basically turn to cement and be exceptionally hard. But it's a very valid point. Normally you'd be wanting to mix PVA in with your paint if you're going to be painting onto white foam, and you're not going to be doing lots of textures and techniques over the top like this, because it will make it much more hard wearing. Just raw house paint on white foam is a bad idea. So thank you very much, Stomping Freak, for that comment. Much appreciated. I really love all the comments I get on my videos, and I do reply to all of them, and I do take on board every suggestion or comment. You'd have to say nice things to me. I love them all. Anything even like, why did you do that? That's not right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've not thought about it through, or maybe I have and I just wasn't clear enough in explaining. So don't be shy. Do say stuff if you've got things to say. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add. And while I've been explaining that, I've done all of that PVA work. So there we are. That's almost as if I planned it. So let that dry now, and then I'll bring it back for the next step very shortly. This is all now nice and dry, and it's hard as a rock. Really, really good. Very pleased with how that's turning out right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build up the layers and the textures on the base. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is make use of this flock which I made, clump foliage. I'll try to remember to put a link to the video, but it's basically blended up dish sponge mixed with paint and water and PVA. It's really, really easy. So yeah, there's a video. I've done it, stolen from Rubbish In, Rubbish Out. Classic. Well, I've seen him doing some more videos recently, but they're all computer game ones on that channel. But I'm going to leave the colour as this kind of sandy colour for now, just because I quite like the contrast that's going to be built up between the dark tree, because the tree trunk is quite dark, and then some lighter stuff going on underneath. Now, one of the biggest challenges with this clump foliage is gluing it down. And what you can see I'm doing is I'm using neat PVA and pressing it down into the neat PVA. That will hopefully hold it in place. And then once that's dried, what I'll do is I'll come along with watered down PVA and soak it with that and let that to dry. So this actually takes a little bit of time in terms of elapsed time, because you need things to go completely dry, and sometimes actually you need to do more than one coat to get a good covering, just because of how it doesn't really like to grab very much. So I'm going to build this up now. I won't film it all. Basically the technique you can see here being done to put the foam onto the ground, and then, as I say, I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back now and I'll turn the camera on when I do at least the first set of washing it with a watered down PVA, and then I'll tell you how many times it takes, because yeah, it's not going to be just one, put it that way. So yeah, but it all looked really nice. So I'll build this up, I'll bring it back for the next step shortly. Well, it's been a couple of days since I've looked at this, which is no way to get through a project fast, but that's life. This is the first time I've come back to it, and I'm doing the first addition of watered down PVA. Now you can see that it's stuck in place, but the foam is still very loose, and would definitely get damaged if you're gaming with it, or even just fall apart anyway if it got knocked. So what we're going to do is, this is the terrain glue, watered down PVA with a little dab of washing up liquid or dish soap, depending on where you are in the world. That's the flow improve and also prevent things from going mouldy. And I'm just going to paint this over every single one and then let it to dry and then check again, and probably I'll have to do this process 2 or 3 times to get these tough enough, hard enough to be hard wearing enough to not completely destroy as soon as you look at them. So again, like I said before, it's not a process for making quick terrain. You know, you're not going to ship this in a day, but it does work well, and yeah, a little bit of patience sometimes is a good thing, isn't it? So yeah, so I'll just carry on doing this. This is by far not the last step on this process, but I want this finished before I do the next step. So I'm just going to carry on doing this, and I will let you know how many applications, I'll try to remember to let you know how many applications it takes before I'm happy with it being hard wearing enough. So yeah, onwards. Let's get this done. Okay, so I took 3 or 4 coats of the glue, but you can see that's now pretty solid. So what I'm now going to do is come along, and I've got these tufts that I'm going to put in a few places around the base of the bushes, and in a few other places. So I won't film all of it because it'll be a lot of repetitive stuff. These are the awesome ones from Serious Play. I really like their tufts. Of course, I'm not sponsored, so I'm not just saying I'm not saying that because they're telling me to. They don't know I exist apart from when I place an order. So yeah, so what you do for those is you get them up with your tweezers, dunk them in some PVA, do not rely on the self-adhesive to keep it in place, and then drop it in where you want it, like that. And that's how you place tufts. Now these ones are particularly big, so they're a little bit complex to put in, so I'll do one more to show a little bit of a better, better result than I got there. So let's go for one of these darker ones. So yeah, pull it out. I've got like 5 there together. Now they are super adhesive, as you can see. I've stuck those to my finger. This is why you use your tweezers to pick them up, otherwise they will stick to you. And then you come along and press them in. And there we are. So I'll make use of that one that came loose as well. So yeah, I'm going to just put these on, nice big splashes of colour, making it a little bit more interesting. I'll bring them up when it's done, show you the next step. Next up is a 2-stage process. So I've got this, which is tree foliage, like leaves that I don't really like very much. So I'm going to put some of that on, just dump some of my terrain glue on. This is being done straight after the previous application, so the tufts are still wet, but that's fine. I'm not going to put this everywhere, but I'm going to put patches of it like this. And then once I've finished doing that, I'll bring you back, and what I'll be doing is I will be putting on what I call Easter foliage, which is this stuff. It was bought out of the Easter aisle. I bought a bucket of it 4 years ago and I barely touched it. I use it a lot, but it just goes a long way. So yeah, I'm not going to run out of that anytime soon. So anyway, I will bring you back when I come to that, and that's going to build up some of the height of the underneath. Don't know if you can tell what I'm going for, but basically it's going to be quite a overgrown bit of jungle with this scary dead tree. Or is it dead? Is it eating people? So yeah, I'll build that up and bring it back when I come to do the foliage. And this is going to need to be locked in place with another coat of the watered down PVA once it's dried, which is why I'm doing it all at once, because it all needs to be sealed, so I may as well get it done at once. So in a few minutes I'll bring it back and show you how I'm going to stick this stuff down, which I really do like. Well, there we are, and I just had a bit of inspiration. I'm going to make use of these chicken bones that I dried a while back to just add a little bit of kind of fear and intrigue to the scene. So just glue those in place there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start to put this stuff in, which is going to give me the height, like I say. So I'm going to put it in places. So let me see, I don't want to get too much in the camera. I'm going to put it in places like here. So excuse the terrible positioning of the glue bottle, but we're going to lump a dollop of glue in there, and this will need to be soaked and soaked and soaked and soaked and soaked, but it will dry, and what you then have is this really nice tangle, as you can see, of weeds and undergrowth. So we're going to come in here again. Terrible positioning of the camera, such a pro me. Pull out a tuft and get to it before it drops. There we are, just caught it, and then squish it in. And like I say, once that's dried, I'll come along with loads of PVA and I will seal that all down. So I'll get the rest of it done. I'm probably not going to put too much more on. I'll get the other bits done that I'm going to add on, and I'll bring it back and show what it looks like when I am about to seal it. Right, now comes the fun part. So I've got myself a dropper, and you can see that I've got some paper down, old newspaper down, and I am going to liberally scatter over the entirety of this. And this is only the first time, I'll do this multiple times. I'm going to basically cover this in PVA. Now, what you can do is, let me get my other dropper and my 99% alcohol, because you'll notice that's going on quite droppy. So if I drop 99% alcohol over this and then do the glue, it will soak in and do a much better result. So put some alcohol on. Gonna need some more in my little pot. It's like the magic ingredient this for doing this work, alcohol. There we are, give it a good soaking with alcohol. And then come along with your glue. And when you drop it on, it will soak in. Isn't that magic? So I'm going to do that, get that finished around the whole piece. As I've said, I'll probably have to do this more than once. I'll let you know how many times I have to do it, and then we'll come on for the final couple of steps. So the next and final touch for this, it's looking great now, is to add a little bit of life to the base. So what I've done is I've pulled out some little metal ducks and some little metal rabbits, and also this, which I have no idea where I got it from, but it's a sprue of wild animals, and I'm going to paint them up and then stick them all over. And last but not least, I've got this, which I already painted. This was painted as part of my snake temple, which is one of my favourite things I've ever made still, and I'm going to have that sitting in the tree watching. So I'll glue that in place as well. So these need some cleaning up. They've got a little bit of flash and what have you, so I'm just going to now snip them off, clean them up carefully, stick them to my tongue depressor, and then go and prime and paint them, and then stick them in place, and then that'll be done. So nearly finished, but still got this final push before I can say that it's actually finished. Right, so we have an arrangement of animals to stick to this, and I'm going to do it now. So just going to use super glue and stick them in places. I'm thinking about putting the cat in the tree. I think that'd be quite fun, and I think up there looks pretty good. So a bit of super glue and drop that cat in there. There we are, there's the cat. I'm going to have the this vulture right on the top there. So a bit of super glue there, and the vulture can sit there. There we are. We then have a dog. So I think the dog, maybe the dog could be near the bones. Let's turn this round where the bones are. And the dog could maybe be kind of sat like that. That looks good, doesn't it? And maybe a little bit hidden, but I quite like little like Easter eggy type things like that. Put this over there. There we are. If at first it doesn't stick, whack some more glue down. There we are, that should be okay. So those are the simple ones to do. I have a rat, which I'm going to stick in right hidden in the undergrowth somewhere. I think just in here. There we are. We have a snake. Let's put one, we've got 2 snakes actually. Let's put 1 snake. It's actually quite hard this because I've built this up a lot. There we are. That can sit in there. Kind of camouflaged a bit against the red. There we are. But still pretty cool. And maybe what I'll do is I'll have the chicken or the duck. I need to snip the base off the duck a bit. It's got a pudding base on it. This isn't really what you want. Pyong! I actually did see where that went, so we can go get that in a second. But I'm going to put the pigeon kind of in here. The pigeon, the duck, and the concept will be, let's tuck that in there, there we are. The concept could be that the duck is about to be got by that snake. There we are. Now, this is probably my favourite. Very pleased with how that's turned out. There's a snake. Very cool. So that one is going to be front and centre. Right in there. And that leaves a little rabbit. And the chicken. So the rabbit can tuck in back. Nope, that's not going to work for me. The rabbit can tuck in there. There we are, very hidden away, but that's cool. And finally the chicken. Where have I not got anything? There we are. Chicken can go there. So I think that is the final touches. I'm going to sleep on it for a bit. See whether I want to change anything, but I'm pretty happy with that. Let them dry, hopefully they'll all stay stable, and yeah, I think that's wrapped up. So there you are. A fun build, a simple build, but really effective. And I actually put it onto a table for a game. It works really well as Old Man Willow if you play a Middle Earth strategy battle game, because obviously he's a bit of a grumpy old man. So it's quite a nice little centerpiece for a forest. If you've got a little bit of a spooky haunted forest, it can work really well for that. Or it could just be a really nice little display piece, and I'm very happy with it both ways. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I will reply to every single one of them, and as I say every week, every time, every video, they really inspire me. And yeah, so thank you if you do put a comment below. I'll wrap up by saying, at the moment, as I always do, the horrific war in Ukraine, if any of you are impacted by that, either directly or indirectly, then my heart does go out to you and anyone you know who may be in that horrific situation. And to everyone, please do stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.